dynamic, exhilarating, a real page turner. All of these are words that I would not use to describe this issue. Howdy, I'm Kurt Williams, and today we're looking at issue 1 of The Rockefellers by Peter J. Tomasi and Francis Manapul. This is the first title in the Family Odysseys universe in the Ghost Machine imprint, which belongs to Image. And I love everything that Ghost Machine has done so far. I love Geiger, I love Junkyard Joe, I love Redcoat, I love Rook Exodus, even Hyde Street and Devour just came out, and those were both amazing books. But you know what all those books had in common? The writer Geoff Johns. The Rockefellers is the first title to come out under Ghost Machine that's not written by Geoff Johns, and even though Francis Manapul has been around for a long time, and he's very good at what he does, his art style is definitely different from the other art styles that we've seen so far in Ghost Machine. And that's not a bad thing to have a different flavor in the Ghost Machine universe. I actually gained a lot of appreciation for Manapul's art. I went from knowing absolutely nothing about him to following him on Instagram, and now that I can see him work through his process, I like his work a lot more than I thought I would. So it should make sense then that the art in issue 1 of Rockefellers was the high point and the writing was just kind of something I had to tolerate. I'm generally not a fan of Tomasi's writing. I haven't read like any of his DC stuff, which I know is a huge oversight on my part. The last thing I read by him was Blood Tree, and I only got through 1 issue and I just wasn't really feeling it. And that's how I felt about the Rockefellers, is that there's a lot of stuff going on that I'm supposed to be feeling, but I just don't have an emotional connection to it yet. If you haven't heard of this series yet, it's basically a family from the 25th century being sent back in time as kind of a witness protection program thing. They land in 2024 and they just have to learn how to blend in and not draw too much attention to themselves. Now, I don't want to give away too much because I think there's a good chance that a lot of you would really enjoy this, and I want to give you the chance to go and find out for yourself. But as I was reading through it, I just kept finding myself rolling my eyes at what was going on. Like at the very beginning of the issue, the family is running across this ice and the villain is chasing after them, and one of the characters decides to sacrifice herself by jumping onto the villain, who is on a hover bike, and dragging them into the water with them. Which bothers me because A, that thing was going fast. How did she even do that? B, it really did not serve to slow down the villain that much. And C, we've barely had any time to appreciate the sacrifice, so it's kind of pointless. Later in the issue, instead of giving us the backstory that we really wanted, such as why are they there in the first place, we see the family having like a backyard Thanksgiving barbecue, which is wholesome and kind of fun at points, but also just generally not that interesting. And then the scene that follows that is also pretty wholesome, but again, not that interesting. And it's not until the very end of the issue when we get kind of almost an inkling of why they might be there. Which, look, I can appreciate a slow burn. I like reading actual books sometimes too, so I don't mind if a comic wants to take its time and develop things slowly. But it would be a lot easier to appreciate the slow burn and get engaged if I felt like I was living in a unique universe with unique characters that are actually somewhat interesting to watch interact with each other. I know the creators have talked about how they're excited to let us get to know these characters over time, let us see how they're unique and interesting individuals, but where we stand in this first issue is basically a watered down version of the Jetsons that are all just fulfilling the role of any member of a family. Like we have a dad who is a dad, a mom who is a mom, 2 kids who are 2 kids. The grandfather is really old and really strong, so that's at least something, but he's still not that interesting to listen to. Like the dialogue is not all that vibrant. So what it looks like to me, maybe the redeeming perspective to have here, is that this is a book for kids. It's tame, it's PG, it's simple, it's not offensive. It's the Family Odysseys imprint of the imprint, right? So maybe it's just supposed to be really family friendly. But listen, I work with kids and it is impossible to get kids to read anything in the first place. If this is gonna be bland and tame, they're definitely not gonna stick to it. So if I don't feel like it's engaging me as an adult reader, and I also am not super confident in it engaging younger readers either, then I'm just not sure what it's trying to do. Now, I'm not saying that it's a total waste of time and money. I think that it's still relatively solid. You know, it's not a bad comic, it's just not interesting, and my expectations coming from the other Ghost Machine titles are pretty high. And considering that I think it's supposed to be a slow burn, I am gonna stick with it. I'll at least ride out the first like 10 issues or so. But I'd really appreciate it if it would start, you know, kicking it into high gear at some point. Now, like I said, the art is really good. I love Manapul's work in this series. I especially love seeing the title of the series in the scenery, like the title is drawn into the background of this issue, which is a great reference to Will Eisner Eisner stuff. The villain design is pretty cool. It's edgy without being like gross 90s cliche. I like the way this family of deer is drawn, except for his antlers maybe, which look not quite right. But it's some of the most uneventful panels, which I think really showcase his talent as an artist, because you can see the varying line thickness in this panel in particular, which is really well done. And he also does that thing that I really like to see an artist doing, where he doesn't just draw every single contour on a body. Like, look at his mouth there. Normally you would draw each of his lips, but he just left that up to your imagination, and it makes the whole thing look much more realistic. Joe Bennett did that a lot too in Immortal Hulk, and I really like that trick. And here's a really good family shot. I love how much depth is in this panel, and all the texturing is really well done too. So like I said, I'm not just gonna give up on the title. I think I just need to give it time to get where it's trying to get. I need to accept the fact that this one is gonna be a bit of a slow burn. And I guess Geiger has also been starting to feel like a slow burn, but at least that's like dark post-apocalyptic stuff, which is just something I generally enjoy, whereas I would not say that I was ever all that nostalgic about the Jetsons. But if you were looking for something that is savory and wholesome and is just going to take its time and avoid the pressures of the world, you want just some escapism in your life, this is not terrible. Before I give it a rating, I just want to let you know that I've been working so hard to get this Every Comic Shop in Georgia video done. I am more than halfway done with part 1, so I've made a ton of progress, and I'm hoping that in the next week or 2 it should be out. So I'll give issue 1 of the Rockefellers a high 6, not quite a 7 out of 10. I'm not excited about it, but I'm giving it the chance to change my mind. So you probably won't see me until Every Comic Shop in Georgia comes out, but until then, if you read this issue, what do you think?